All right, for everyone present, thank you all for joining this webinar, an introduction to BDD, Behavior Driven Development. My name is Roderick, co-organizer of this event, together with Hiva Bit and experts on the topic on BDD. Welcome. Welcome everyone. The reason we're organizing this webinar is because we received a lot of questions from our community on this particular topic, and we want to use this our platform to provide you all the insights on this specific topic. So to go through the timetable, we have an opening, and then afterwards we'll do an intro, and afterwards a workshop. At the end, we can do a discussion with a lot of takeaways and a Q&A afterwards, and we will end this webinar at a specific around 12:30. Practicalities to make this an ideal webinar for everyone. It would be good if all the attendees can mute their microphones. I would say enjoy the webinar. Also important, if everyone can, it would be easier if everyone can rename themselves to their actual name. This can be easier if there will be questions will be asked during the chat and during the Q&A. So a little bit in short about QBD Futures. All that you need to know is we're IT staffing partner around the IT market. QBD Futures, yeah, we're a global organization, also located here in Belgium. I work from our Antwerp office. I think that's, in a nutshell, everything that you need to know. The reason why we're organizing this is not our first Tech Talk that we're organizing. This would be our 30th event. So that's very nice. Our second one online. So the reason why we're organizing this, because we see a lot of trends within our markets that are happening, and we want to facilitate that knowledge towards everyone. So we receive a lot of questions from our community to talk a bit more about a specific topic, so we can use this platform to facilitate all that knowledge. Also, we want to show that we're more than just a staffing partner who link specialists to a specific job. This is an ideal way to share all the knowledge that we have from the people that we know, and also an ideal to network with the people from in the community. And also, a quick question: is it okay if we? Is it okay for everyone if we record this webinar? You can leave it in the chat, or.
So if you don't agree with the webinar being recorded, please put it in the chat. Okay, nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
I guess
I'll leave the word to you.
Thank you, Roderick. Thank you for the introduction. So, can you stop sharing your screen, Roderick, please? Thank you. So, welcome everybody. Give me just 1 second to make sure everything is okay. And I'm looking for my chat. Yeah, thank you. So first, why are we here? We are here because we want to build better, right? So can I ask you first to put in the chat your role and what you already know about BDD? Just to have a bit of a connection with Is my audio okay? Does everybody hear me? Ah, nice, nice. Niels van der Beke, an integration engineer, and you're a Flash lead. Nice, nice. Welcome, Niels. So if more people can add it, maybe I can tailor a bit webinar to ah, nice, Jan. True, the given one then. Hello, Patricia. Hello, Jan. Welcome. Okay, that's cool. Already some people are acquainted with the subject. Hi, Andre. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Miran. You're a Ruby developer. Nice. This is how I got into BDD through Cucumber. Hi, Jeppe. Hi, Dukyu. Dukyu? Am I saying this correctly? Okay, so I'm understanding it's basic knowledge. Okay, so let's go. So let me get the controls. So when we want to build a good product, we always have to work in two dimensions. We have to build the product right, and we have to make sure that we're building the product right. If you accomplish these two, building the right product and building the product right, you have a great success. But if you're building the product right, but you're not building the right product, you have a business failure. And then if you're building the right product, but you're not building it in the right way, you'll have a maintenance nightmare. And at least if you fail at both these two, well, you're not in a happy place. So today, our focus is on building the right thing by getting acquainted with two major concepts, which are for me very important in the domain of BDD. And first, I want to talk about the difference between a requirement and a solution. So, 1 second, the chat window is in my way. So in order to make it better, we have to make sure that we're doing it in the right way. And you don't have to take my word, but you can take the word of Einstein, who said, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I would spend 55 minutes to determine the proper question. Well, what's the challenge there? How do we know that we have the right question? Well, first we would say, if we're building stuff, ask the customer, but maybe the customer doesn't know what the requirement is. This famous person said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said fastest horses. 42, indeed, Jan, 42. But coming back, it's very important to understand the problem, and then you have to make sure that you understand the problem better than the customer themselves. So what I'm saying is that we need to focus on the problem domain, not on the solution domain, because with everything ongoing with the technical things, solutions are easy as soon as you know which problem you need to fix. So let us take some time to work on how to tell the difference between a problem and a solution. And of course, you already signed the invitation. It will be an interactive session. So we will have a breakout group. So my co-pilot Mark will put everything automatically. When you see the join button, please click. And the goal is to give an example of a problem and a solution from your day-to-day personal activities. So what is important is that you also choose a leader. And when you see leave the breakout room button, please click. So you will see a button, click join. You will be in a group yourself. Then talk amongst each other about a problem and an example of a problem and a solution from your day-to-day. Appoint a leader, and when we call you back, the leader will present your examples in the chat. So Mark, can you please set up the breakout rooms? Welcome back, everybody. Let me share my screen again. Let me get the chat window. So, welcome back. Can the leaders of each group put in the chat their examples of a requirement and a solution? And I'm losing my chat. Okay, so Jan, can you start with giving an example of a requirement versus a solution? Or the other leaders of the group? So I'm seeing nothing. Okay, user wants to ask a question to somebody. That's a good requirement. That's a good solution. That's a very nice one, Jan. For you, it's clear. Can the other leaders also put their examples of requirements versus solution in the chat, please? So we can have a bit of a discussion. So a requirement is a problem you want to fix, right? And the problem here is that somebody wants an easy way to ask a question to somebody else. And you have a lot of solutions, and one of the solutions is an email. So I'm getting, Xavier says that the user usually comes with a solution instead of the problem. And this is a very good one. This is a bit what Henry Ford said, right? If I listen to my customers, then I would build faster horses. Nice. I see a good one. I want to make money. I want to see products. True, true, true. True, Jan. The chief cause of problems is people not understanding the problem itself and having different requirements and different understanding. That's a good one, Andre. Your problem is you want to work in IT, certifications, and online programs. Okay, so it seems to me that a lot of people here understand the difference between a requirement and a solution. And it seems to be very hard and not common in the IT industry. So, can we all just take 2 minutes to reflect a bit and see what you have learned from this interaction in the chat? So somebody said people usually come with a solution. It's difficult to understand between the problem and the solution. I hope everybody can use the chat. That's a good one. Xavier, can you put it to everybody instead of to me privately? I like your responses and I would like to share them with everybody. That's a good one, Jan. As a developer, you want to build things and use cool stuff that puts you on the path to put the solution before the problem. True, true. Indeed, Xavier. This is indeed the challenge. The requirements are ambiguous because everybody have a different understanding of the world, right? Indeed. I'm happy. Very good remarks. So let's go on to the next slide. So to recap, a requirement is what we need to do to solve the problem we're having. And a solution is how we will choose to solve the problem. So where will we practice this? Understanding the difference between a requirement and a problem. So I already had some examples. So I think I will make time box this because I see Xavier and Jan having a good understanding about how to practice this. You see the solutions versus requirement. So let's move on to the next concept. So the second concept I want to do is how to capture the requirements. Well, when we capture the requirements, and as some people already stated in the chat, the most important thing, if we nailed down the requirement or the problem, we have to capture it without confusion. And what do we know already about capturing requirements? Can we put some examples about how requirements are captured for now in your day-to-day activities? Through email, true, Erwin. Thank you, Dukyo. Workshops, indeed. You capture them through workshops. That's a good one. Get everybody around the table. Personas, indeed. In short sentences, indeed. So Xavier, I'm guessing you think you're pointing at Jira with the user stories and the epics. Indeed. Okay. So what I noticed when I started in IT, I'm guessing everybody's seen this picture, right? We all see how the customer explained it and how it went over to all the different domains in building a project. And I had a lot of laughs when I first saw this image. But for me, once I've entered into the BDD, one thing really struck me. And if you go to the top left, you see how the customer explained it. And if you go to the bottom right, you see what the customer really needed. So not taking into account that the requirements were captured and handed over with some confusion, you see that how the customer explained it and what the customer really needed is already, there's already delta. It's not being captured in the correct way, which is a challenge because communication, even in the same languages, is always difficult. So, my experience, the best way to avoid confusions is to capture examples. And we need examples of the behavior we want our product to exhibit. In this way, we're focusing on what our product needs to be done, meaning behavior-driven development, and not on solution-driven development, where you focus on how it does it, solutionizing instead of requirement, because this tends to make us lose track of key requirements. And one of examples of solution-driven requirements is, I need a server. Why do you need a server? I need a fast horse. Well, maybe you can have a car, which is better. So how do we capture these behaviors? I already saw in the chat somebody knows given when then. So usually what I do to capture requirements, we capture a series of uses scenarios in the format of given when then. So once you understand the problem, you need to capture the problem in a way which is understandable for everybody. The format I'm using is given when then, where given is the precondition. This is a certain situation you are in. You have a particular user, you have a particular situation, you're authenticated, you're on a certain page. We need this starting situation, this given, because we always need to be able to have the same result. Of course, if you have a situation and you want behavior, so when somebody authenticates or when somebody buys a house, you need an action, right? You need a starting situation, you need an action, which is the when. And to make sure that the behavior is captured correctly, you also need a confirmation. So when I'm buying a house, then this is the price. Where given in retail, when I'm buying a car, then this is the price with all the logics and the mortgage logic behind it. So, and I want to do an exercise on capturing requirements. It's the same set, but I want you to have the example which you have of your problem. And to explain this is in a given when then. So again, you will automatically have groups. When you see the join button, please click. Then talk inside your group about a requirement which you can clarify or explain in a given when then, and choose a leader which will present your examples in the chat. When you see the leave breakout button, please click again and you will come back. Mark, can you make the breakout rooms? Thank you. Welcome back. So let me find my chat again. Let me first share my screen again. So can the leaders of the groups put their examples in the chat, please? If you put your examples in the chat, we can have a discussion and I can give you some feedback. I already had one example. That's a good one, Andre. The only thing is that when it's an action, and now it's an indication of time. So with given, you're not certified, that's a correct starting point. So what is the action you're going to do? And what is the result? So when would be an action, something you actively do? So given I am not certified, when I get certifications, then I have a higher chance on landing a job. Of course, you have the higher chance on landing a job, you have to make it concrete, but basically, this is the best way to give an example on how to capture a problem and a solution so everybody understands the same. And the certifications also should be concrete, like given I'm not certified in Java, when I get my Java SEC certification, then I meet requirements to start working at clients. Are there more examples of given wins dens we can share in the chat? Do you hear me correctly, or? That's a very good one, Bima. So there's a small beauty error, I would say, is that your given is a bit more implementation specific. I like your win and I like your den. Your den is very crisp, it's very good. So what Bima is explaining, this is an example of user behavior we should capture. And as you can see, this is very unambiguous. You see which user is at which state, what he needs to do, provide the payment details and click on a checkout button. Then the user status should be changed to paid and amount should be credited. This is the problem expressed in a way which is clearly understandable for everybody. As you said, you also have a very good example. That's a very good one. That's a very good one. So people already using the given win dens and are acquainted with it. One thing you should investigate is what is the trade-off between implementation specific things and non-implementation specific things. What do I mean with this? For example, given the user is browsing products, when he clicks on add, then the product is added to the shopping cart. So when the user is browsing products, this is valuable, right? The customer is looking around, he's browsing products. When he clicks on add, this can be perceived as an implementation details. You can say more like, okay, when he adds a product, then the product is added to the shopping cart. Why would you describe it like when you add the product instead of why you click the button? Is when you click the button means as soon as the interface changes, you have to update your scenario. But when you make it more business value, meaning when you add a product, the implementation can change. It can be a button, a slider, you slide everything. It can be a Dropbox, it can be everybody, but you're still adding a product. It's a bit on description, and this is a discussion you should have in your team, which is the most valuable for everybody. Good examples. Thank you. Thank you. So, how can we apply this in your day-to-day activities? And this is a general question to everybody. So the given win dens. How? With the knowledge you have about explaining something to somebody else, how can you apply this in your day-to-day activities? Can we get some examples in the chat, please? You seem to be very motivated, Andre. I like that. So in order to tie box and to make sure that we have time for some questions, I will go to the next slide. So as a recap, Xavier has a very nice example. Given a wrong account number is given for validation, when the request is validated, validation result should be present errors. So what I'm understanding, Xavier, is that you're using this to convey your requirement or the information to somebody else. That's a very good thing. So in order to time box, let's make sure that we go to the conclusion. So again, the requirement is what we need to do to solve the problem, and the solution is how we choose to solve the problem. Summing up, BDD gives us a shared understanding of the problem by explaining it with examples, a documentation of the problem, because if you have examples, you can put them somewhere and you're documented what you need to do. And your test coverage will go up because what the application needs to be done is described and can be used for testing. So the three key takeaways from this short talk is understanding the difference between a problem and a solution, and understanding how to express your requirements through given, when, then. And of course, the most important one is Computer Future Solutions is awesome. Thanks for providing me the platform to share the knowledge and to have a conversation. But basically, these are the three key takeaways we want you to take away from this webinar. So in conclusion, building a better product, the reason why we came here, is a complex domain. And in this time box, we merely scratched the surface. If you're interested in exploring this further, please contact us, meaning Computer Future Solutions, and we can see how we can meet your requirements. So now it's part for the Q&A section. So I think we can unmute people and we can have some questions.
I actually have a question on this in a more concrete practice. Do people just put this the GWT on the Jira comments or something when they create a story?
Urban, can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, I was wondering about the more practical implementation of this. So the GWT thing, I understand is great, but when people create tickets in Jira, for example, do they just type the GWT in the comments or in the Jira ticket itself?
So this is how your tool is delivering your process. I'm not sure how you do it, but usually my teams, they describe the acceptance criteria and given when then. So there is no user story without acceptance criteria and given when then explaining them. And then it's up to you. Do you put it in the summary of the Jira ticket? Do you put it in the comments? Do you put it in Notepad? Do you put it in Git? So the tool itself is not important. The most important thing is that we have a shared understanding. We're using examples, and where you capture them, this is more a team agreement. If you use Confluence, if you use Jira, it's a bit.
Yeah.
As an answer to your question, Erwin?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool, okay. So I think we still have 14 minutes for questions. Somebody else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Hi, Paul.
Speaking. How do you manage dependencies or links between different statements? Because I can imagine if we have 50, maybe between 50 and 100 statements flying around, there is a lot of overlapping. There must be a sequence somewhere.
So
because some have
dependencies?
That if you have your use cases, yeah. So you define your given when thens for a certain use case, a certain scenario, a certain issue, problem, whatever you call it. There must be another. If you are going to validate to implement, there must be a lot of overlapping at least. That's one.
Right.
Of the functionality that you describe.
Well, wait, let's take it one by one.
Yeah.
So you're describing one functionality and you're describing it using examples. So you have a functionality meaning people can authenticate. You should describe this, right?
But I'm more thinking on a higher level, where you start using given when thens to describe your requirement.
Yes.
Authentication is more a solution.
Okay. So
that's an implementation.
Okay.
I'm thinking on the functional side.
Can you give me an example?
If I look at, now I have to think what I'm recently working on. A production process. I'm working in industry. We want to build something.
Okay.
Putting two things together.
Okay.
So people will describe the function from a person point of view, where they say, take one, given this is not assembled, I can do it in a certain way.
That's very high level. You should
Something
make it
like
very
that.
concrete.
Yes.
So given what is assembled?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to be concrete.
The thing is, dependencies, for me, requirements should explain the domain. So if it's about authentication, so let's for example say the registration rights, right? Do you know registration rights in Belgium?
Yeah.
So if you think about the registration rights, you can clarify the registration rights by using examples, meaning, given I'm buying a house in Flanders of 100,000 euros, when I want to purchase it, then I see the correct results, meaning, given a house of 100,000 euros in Flanders is X amount of registration rights. Given a house in Flanders of 200,000 euros, this is the registration rights. And this is how you clarify behavior, because a house of 100,000 will have the minimum, the house of 200,000 will have the maximum described, right?
Okay, yeah.
So you're clarifying this problem, registration right. My customer needs to know what are the registration rights. So you're specifically saying, giving this persona, so giving he buys a house in Flanders for 100,000 euros, this is the result. Given Paul, who's a well guy, who's different types of client, and he gets more perks because you have more money at the bank. So given Paul buys a house in Wallonie, then this is the result. And this is how you explain the requirements more clearly without difference in understanding.
So you put your whole logic into your given when dense.
No, you explain the logic in the given when dense, because this is a bit of summary, right? You, by explaining the behavior, you have a shared understanding of the problem and the documentation of the problem. So the problem is I need to know, So the problem is I need to know the registration rights when I'm buying a house. Well, by having the discussions and having the examples, you have a shared understanding. And by writing them down in Jira or somebody else, you have a documentation of what it needs to be done.
Okay, all right.
If you want to have more details or a deeper discussion, feel free to hit me up and we can have a discussion if you're more.
Maybe. I'll have to see how to make this really practical.
Yeah, true, because it's abstract. And this is the goal of the examples, to make it really concrete. Because if people want to build something, when you start building something, you always think about, okay, this I didn't think about, this I didn't think about. That's a bit the idea of BDD. You write the requirements very crisp and concrete, so you have it first time right.
Yeah, and there, what we do now, we develop BPM, we use BPM annotation. And there you can actually see the flow. And that is what I'm missing here, and that's why I asked the question.
So you're talking about the process.
Yeah.
BDD is making requirements clear. It's not process.
Okay.
So you're describing a process flow, while requirement, like somebody, so rule, you can only buy alcohol in Belgium if you're above 18 years. An example would be, he wants to buy beer, cannot. Paul wants to buy beer, he can.
Yeah, but that's the same with your registration.
True.
I have a lot of money. I can buy in Flanders. You don't have a lot of money. You buy in Wallonie.
But it's not a process, right? It's just a requirement, a problem with a solution.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Somebody else? We still have time for 2 small questions. If you don't speak out, you can always use the chat.
Do you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Xavier.
Hi. For me, the interest of BDD is that it's decoupling a problem into very small and verifiable requirements. But then comes the interest of being able to execute those those requirements. So I explored a bit of few possible frameworks for implementing BDDs, and I want to know what is the state of the art, most practical framework to implement BDD requirements.
So what Xavier is explaining, once you describe what the application needs to do, you can automate it. And basically, you have the code, you have the documentation, you have the test cases. But if you really describe this is what needs to be done, and you can make it executable, your test cases will be automated. Everything that automatically run every time there's a change in your code base. So basically, Xavier, my setup, which I used in different domains being finance and telecom, is Cucumber together with Notepad. And in Notepad, I used the page object pattern and I connected it with an API command line interface and with Capybara.
Okay.
But there are some other frameworks which are really nice. I see Serenity, the screenplay pattern. This is something to discover. And of course, you have JBehave and others. But for me, I got into BDD through Cucumber, and they have a very nice platform. They have a very nice tool. It's becoming more industrial. And Cucumber helped me to reduce my time to market from 12 months to 3 months, just by making the specifications more clear and by automating this.
Okay, thanks.
This is an answer to your question. If you want, hit me up. I can send you all the links of the tools and the information I'm having.
Okay, I'll do it. Thank you.
Somebody else has a question?
Eski, could you just post, I mean, maybe can you somehow make your PowerPoint available and
Yes.
put the 2-3 libraries you put in there too?
Yes.
Because one of the things I'm concerned / struggling with is converting Cucumber or in fact Gherkin into executable tests that are maintainable.
Sure. We can, so I'll put the libraries there, but your question, which I also faced, is how do you make it maintainable? And what I did is I used a design pattern. The thing is, so it's about maintaining your code, but it's also about the test strategy in your squad, right?
Okay, yeah, okay. I don't say yes or no, but keep on going.
The thing with BDD, it's a vast concept and it hits a lot of things. So some anti-patterns I see is that squads using an agile approach, they write like 200 scenarios through the UI, through BDD, and they don't have unit tests and integration tests. My best experience is where you have the triangle of my cone, where you only have like 20, 30 examples describing behavior, and the rest is covered by integration and unit testing. But the problem with BDD is that the two major concepts for me about BDD is that the full team understands it and that we have examples explaining them. And of course, they have a lot of trade-offs on which you can capitalize. But when I present these courses, it takes me 4 to 5 days to bring the whole domain. And of course, in this webinar, I only had like 40 minutes and I wanted to make sure that we focused on the most important thing, which is having conversations and having a shared understanding on what we need to build. Is that an answer to your question, Jan?
No, but I was not expecting an answer in 2 minutes, so it's kind of fine for me.
So again, feel free to contact me. We can have a discussion and maybe we can have some concrete examples and maybe I can see how I can help you or point you in the right direction. So my co-pilot is notifying I only have 1 minute left. So if somebody has a very short question.
I think when you are doing BDD, you have to express very specific stuff. So the ideas have to be very clear. So you have to have refined the analysis very well before.
Yes, and usually there are some techniques like example mapping, where you clarify the scope of the user story is by using examples. And if you do this session before you start working on the use case or user story, then you have everything what it needs to be done, and you know when you're done, because as soon as the code makes all the examples work, you're done.
And maybe the techniques of the 5 whys.
True, true, true. No, this is a very nice one. These are the questions you need to ask during these sessions where you describe the examples. Indeed, why, to make sure you covered all the edge cases. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to give the screen again to Roderick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roderick?
Yes. All right. Thank you, He. This presentation went very smoothly. That's very good. So thank you all for your attendance. All of this couldn't have taken place because of you all. So thank you for that. To end this webinar, you can help us improve by giving feedback through the survey that's going to be sent to you. I want to say, please fill this in so we can improve our way of working, maybe other specific topics, and also help he improve on when you go to a future presentation. Those of you all who want to get notified as well on all of this will also be provided in the email. You can join our community by following Computer Futures on LinkedIn. And also for future events, you can also go to our website, computerfutures.com, and then click on the webinar page. So the last bit, if you can give your takeaways in 3 words, what was your takeaway from this particular session? You can put it in the chat, and you can share it with all of us. If you have any specific questions, you can definitely contact us or he. So thank you all for joining, and hope to see you in the future on a future webinar or Tech Talk. Thank you.